I'd like to share a few summary points from today's discussions, a few takeaways. So from our first panel of the day, harnessing lessons from the pandemic to strengthen governance. We think we learned that the pandemic has led board meetings largely taking place virtually, of course. And as Dottie mentioned at the end of that panel just then, despite Zoom fatigue, this has brought a number of advantages that could well continue on beyond COVID-19. One of the changes has been the focus on targeted agendas and additional preparatory materials going to directors, so that only really the key issues are escalated to discussions during meetings, saving valuable time. There was also a suggestion that management should be talking to companies' key stakeholders, and that the company should be using metrics to measure its success in meeting those stakeholders' needs. Our second panel of the day on risk management. It was noted that during the pandemic, there's been a need to get more granular information to the board, and that therefore that involves a process that entails a lot more people from across the company to help gather that information. The pandemic has also emphasized the need for someone on the board who have a great understanding of supply chain risks, which have obviously been a very important feature of the crisis. Another piece of advice for governance teams was to engage soon with internal audit and outside auditors to make sure any issues that may have slipped through the cracks during the last few months are dealt with as soon as possible. Our third panel on the evolution of ESG post-COVID-19 discussed the growing focus on human capital management and in issues including diversity and inclusion. It was noted that BlackRock, for example, wants to understand what companies are doing to address racial inequality, how they treat their workforces, and human rights in their supply chains, all of which are features of long-term value creation. The panel noted that the likely impact of the new California law that's seeking to increase the presence of underrepresented communities on boards. And they also suggested preparing for extra scrutiny of executive comp this year, which in the context of the pandemic seems a good bet. Our next panel on the what next for the AGM included some words of wisdom on getting ready for virtual AGMs. One, have a great IT group on hand. Two, train everybody on the platform, including board members, even if that means one-to-one meetings with IT teams. Three, make sure you set out a clear code of conduct and think through what your policies are on questions. And four, rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Finally, you just heard our panel, a wonderful panel just now, we're discussing some of the steps that corporate secretaries can take to help improve board diversity. Among those are setting a time frame for making progress on the issue, educating the Nom-Gov committee on investor demands regarding diversity, and coordinating the process of recruiting directors, particularly using consultants who might go for an expanded search of candidates. The panel also talked about diversity disclosure and obviously recommend that rather than just using data points, that companies give context to those data and keep the board updated on what's going on, what internal statistics are available, how they benchmark against other companies.